Magic and movies. Those two kind of go hand in hand in certain aspects. I mean, one of the first filmmakers was a stage magician, George Méliès. And so it's natural that people are probably going to be paying homage to that sort of thing, especially when they had people recording magic tricks, people doing a lot of optical illusions. And then there's also a lot of films that focus on the perils of show business. Some in a lighthearted tone like Bowfinger, and others that are very gritty and dramatic like The Wrestler or Black Swan. Black Swan. Having a little problem with my English. Anyway, it also is weird how a lot of movies that focus on stage magicians, they always come out in twos. I mean, a while back we had The Prestige and The Illusionist come out around the same time, and here we've got The Incredible Burt Wonderstone and Now You See Me coming out around the same time. It's kind of weird when you think about it. Yeah, let's get started with the episode. Now, the first thing I have to say is that this is one of those films that really takes a while to get started. I don't necessarily mean in the sense that you're watching the credits for like 30 minutes, but it's more of a case of that the story takes a while before it actually gets picked up, before it picks up and before it actually gets interesting. It was nice to kind of show that, hey, they were young and got into magic together as kids and as childhood friends. But then the scenes where they were like trying to show that, hey, they've grown to loathe each other over the years, the main character's an a-hole. They spent a little too much time trying to establish that. I mean, the story begins to pick up when they actually lose their job at the Vegas hotel. That really could be considered the inciting incident. I mean, a lot of people could probably argue, well, the inciting incident is the introduction of Steve Gray, but it didn't really feel like that. It just felt more like, I don't know, it just felt like those earlier scenes were kind of just there to pad the film. It could have been a little bit better, or at least could have wasted less of the viewer's time. Now, when we actually get to the point where the main character actually does get, like, brought down to earth and realizes that he's no longer the rich guy anymore, that's where the story actually starts to pick up. That's where things actually get interesting. That's where we actually get to know the characters. And it's kind of a case that it took too long to get to that, but after that point we actually start to actually understand who these characters are and actually get interested in them, particularly with the way certain things develop. But it's a case where throughout the film they have their humor bits, but it's not really humor that makes you laugh out loud. It's just kind of the kind of humor that you're watching and it's just like, oh, that's funny. The few exceptions being that there are some jokes that are mostly sight gags that actually get your interest, like one particular scene that just literally had me go, mostly because the delivery of the sight gag was a lot more interesting. However, a lot of the jokes you can tell that they kind of tried to build up to and tried to give a lot of that punch was used up in the TV spots and the trailers. That's a problem with a lot of films like this, where they try to put the funniest stuff in the trailers to incentivize people to watch, but the problem is that you've used up too much of your good ammo that when that part actually comes up in the film, the effect is diminished. It's kind of a case of, hey, I already saw this before, give me something different, give me something new. Now, another thing I really have to add is the case of how the magic in the film is shown, because it's a real problem with a lot of films based on magic, because it's so easy to cheat when making a movie. Like, really easy. The magic tricks where it was like the sleight of hand and like the mild stuff like that, that was in like the wider shots, you could tell that they actually had to try and actually had to work on it, but a lot of the bigger effects, especially the ones that are supposed to make the viewer, the person watching the movie, kind of go ooh and ah, it just feels kind of flat. To quote Penn Jillette, cameras are not magic tricks. It's easy to do any kind of magic trick at all when you have the ultimate magic of the editing bay. I mean, I could just very easily just go, ooh, I'm invisible. I'm the greatest magician since Siegfried and Roy. I could give Penn and Teller a run for their money. Ooh. And then cut back to any other shot like this in order to make it look like, ooh, I did a magic trick. I made myself disappear, when I literally just held this in front of the camera, dropped it, then in post, took a plate shot of me not sitting in a chair and just cut it in the middle. It's that simple. It just didn't feel that great, because in my mind it was just like, yeah, I know I'm watching a movie. I know that they could very easily cheat this sort of thing. An example of something that kind of did it right was last week's film, The Oz the Great and Powerful, because although they have like the fake movie magic later in the film, early in the film, you actually see James Franco actually doing the tricks. He actually got training from a professional stage magician on how to do this stuff, and so it's just that little thing that you add to kind of make your film more believable. And this film didn't really have that. All things considered, the film was better than I expected, but it's a decent film, but it's very forgettable. Like, I don't really remember a lot of the major jokes from it, except for one, which would be kind of hard to describe / kind of spoilerish, and I don't like to put spoilers in my reviews, even in movies I don't like. Just look at the Dark Skies review, for example. And so, really, it's one of those films that, say you're working on something and you just want background noise, this would be a film that you would have the DVD, you put it in your DVD player to play to essentially be background noise. It's basically a movie you would watch to kill time and not necessarily to be entertained. That's the best way I can describe this movie. It has some good bits, but you're probably better off waiting for it to come to Netflix or to a video store to rent it. Not really worth seeing in theaters. It's just kind of a meh movie, which is really unfortunate given a lot of the high quality talented actors that we've got in this film. But it's a movie. That's most that I can say about it. So on my personal scale, I'm giving The Incredible Burt Wonderstone a 3.5 out of 5. Again, better than certain other films that I've seen that have been forgettable, and it has some good humor bits, but it's still just kind of eh. So that's it for this week's episode of Romney's Reviews. As for next week, I'm kind of caught between two different films. The first would be The Croods, and the second would be Olympus Has Fallen. Which film should I review next? Comment below. And I'll see you all next week.